The captive asterisk, the alien girl sat still in the corner of the dark cell. Her arms were tied in metal cuffs, and her eyes were lowered to the floor. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She only waited Dot outside the cell. Boots echoed in the hallway. Heavy, slow steps, the sound of someone strong, someone dangerous. She flinched as the door hissed open. A tall human soldier stepped inside. His armor was scratched and burned, marked from many battles. His face was rough, jaw tight, and his eyes cold like space. He looked down at her with unreadable silence. She did not speak. She was a prisoner. Her people had fought against Earth's forces in a brutal war. Her side lost. Many of her kind had surrendered, others had fled. But she was different. She had stayed behind, injured and alone, captured, useless now. The soldier stared for a long time, then stepped closer. She closed her eyes, bracing for pain. A kick, a strike, a weapon drawn, punishment, but it never came. Instead, she heard a soft click. Her eyes opened. The cuffs around her wrists had fallen open. The soldier stood back, arms folded, watching her quietly. "Why?" she whispered, voice dry from silence. "I'm your enemy." The human's voice was low. "You're not fighting now. War's over. You're not my enemy anymore." She didn't understand. Then, "I am a prisoner?" "You were," he said, "but not anymore." She stared at him, heart racing. "You should punish me. My people, we killed many of yours." The man looked away for a moment, then met her eyes. "We lost people too. But if we keep punishing each other forever, we'll never stop bleeding." Silence stretched between them. She had expected hate, maybe even death. That would have been easier. But this, mercy? It confused her more than violence. "Who are you?" she asked. "Name's Ray," he said simply. "Just a soldier. I was told to clear this section. Didn't expect to find someone still waiting. Still waiting for pain. Still waiting for death." "I was left behind," she whispered. "My commander told me to hold the outpost, and they ran. They never came back." Ray nodded slowly. "It happens. Sometimes leadership forgets about the ones on the ground." She couldn't take her eyes off him. "You're not angry?" "Oh, I am," he said, "but not at you. Not anymore." He turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Come if you want. There's food and medics down the hall. You can rest. Or you can stay here. Your choice." She stared at the open door for a long time after he left. Her hands were free. She could run. Or she could attack. But she didn't, because for the first time since the war began, someone had looked at her not as a monster, not as an enemy, but as a person. And that changed something. She stood slowly. Her legs trembled. Her body was weak. But she walked toward the door, toward the human who had shown mercy, toward a future she didn't understand yet, the walk through fire. The hallway outside the cell felt strange to her. Too wide, too clean. The lights above were steady and soft, not the blinking red warnings she was used to in her warships. She walked slowly, her bare feet echoing against the metal floor. Each step felt like a choice. She had expected to be dragged out of that cell. She had expected yelling. Instead, the human had left the door open and trusted her to follow. And she had Dot as she turned the corner. She saw him, Ray, standing near a supply station. He was speaking to another human in a white coat. They stopped talking when they noticed her. The other human looked worried. But Ray just nodded. "You came," he said. She didn't answer. She didn't know what to say. Ray pointed to a bench. "Sit. You're still limping," she hesitated, then slowly sat. The human doctor walked over and knelt beside her, holding a scanner. "I won't hurt you. the doctor said gently. Just checking your wounds. The girl flinched as the scanner passed over her leg. A soft beep, then a light flashed. Fractured bone, torn muscle, the doctor said. No infection. She's lucky. Ray looked at her again. How long? Were you alone? She looked away. I stopped counting after the 10th night. Ray frowned. You should have been rescued. Left behind like that, it's wrong. Her hands clenched. I obeyed orders. I stayed. It was my duty. But where are your people now? He asked. She didn't answer. Her throat tightened. The doctor stood up. She needs food. Fluids, too. I'll get a med-pack. Ray nodded and turned to her again. What's your name? She paused. I don't think you can say it. It's not easy in your language. Try me. She hesitated again, then said softly, Leah. Ray repeated it once. Leah, that's not hard. She blinked. It was the first time. In days, maybe weeks, someone had said her name without anger. It almost didn't feel real. You're not afraid I'll attack you? She asked. Ray gave a small shrug. You could, but I've fought real enemies. You're not one anymore. Why do you believe that? Because you followed me. He said simply. If you were still fighting, you'd have stayed in the dark. She lowered her head. I thought I was ready to die. But you weren't, he said. You're still here. They sat in silence for a while. Then a loud alarm rang from a far corridor. Red lights flashed. Voices came over the intercom in human language too fast for her to follow. Ray stood. Quickly. Stay here. What's happening? I don't know. Could be a false alarm. Could be something worse. She stood too. You trust me enough to leave me here? He looked back at her. I'm hoping you trust me enough not to run. She met his eyes. You showed me mercy. I will not forget that. Ray gave her a small nod, then turned and ran toward the sound of danger. Leah watched him go, her thoughts spinning. He was strong, trained. He could kill her easily. But he didn't single quotes T. She could leave now. No one would stop her. But something deeper held her in place. Not chains, not fear. Something else. A spark of belief. That maybe, just maybe. The war didn't have to define her. That may be a human showing. Kindness could change everything. Voices in the smoke. Leah sat alone on the bench, watching the hallway flicker red with emergency lights. The silence returned, but it was no longer peaceful. It was heavy, waiting for something to break. Suddenly, distant shouting echoed through the corridor. She stood, body tense. Her instincts screamed to run, to hide, to prepare for a fight. But she didn't. She stayed still. Then the smoke came. Gray tendrils drifted into the hall. She coughed once, covered her mouth, and looked toward the sound. It wasn't fire. Not yet. But something had gone wrong, and Ray hadn't returned. A sharp voice cracked through the intercom. It wasn't in her language, but she heard one word. Over and over, breach. Her eyes widened. It couldn't be? Enemy raiders? Her own people? She moved quickly down the corridor, keeping low. She had no armor, no weapons, but she knew how to move unseen. Her bare feet made no sound against the floor. She followed the smoke until she reached the corner. That's when she heard it, Ray's voice. He was shouting, not in fear. In command. Leah crept closer. Ray stood at the intersection, blaster in hand, crouched behind a crate. Across from him were two figures in unfamiliar armor, speaking a language even she didn't know. They held rifles and moved with precision. Ray fired once, forcing them back. But he was outnumbered. She scanned the area. A storage cabinet sat open near her. Inside, tools. Nothing deadly. Except a small maintenance torch. She grabbed it. It wasn't meant for combat, but it could cut through metal. And maybe, just maybe, it could help. She crept behind the enemy soldiers as they advanced slowly toward Ray's position. They were careful, focused on the man ahead. They never saw her coming. Leah pressed a torch to one of their suits, just long enough to melt the side plate. The attacker screamed, dropped his rifle, and fell. The second turned, surprised, but she was already moving, low and fast. Ray took the opening and fired. Both enemies dropped to the floor. Smoke filled the space. Sirens continued to scream. Ray turned and saw her. "You," he said, eyes wide. "I didn't run," she said, catching her breath. "You trusted me." He gave a short laugh, half surprised, half relieved. "You saved my life." "You saved mine first." He looked her over. "Are you okay?" She nodded. "Better than I was." They heard another explosion nearby. Ray cursed and tapped his com. "They're hitting the lower levels. We have to get to the evac zone." He looked at her. "You're coming with me. That's not a request." She nodded again. This time, without hesitation. As they ran side by side through the corridors, Leah realized something strange. She no longer felt like a prisoner. She didn't even feel like a soldier. She felt like someone with a purpose, and she wasn't alone. Asterisk. Wounded and the Watcher. Asterisk. Leah and Ray ran through the smoke-filled corridors as alarms echoed behind them. The floor shook with distant blasts. Voices shouted through coms, but Ray didn't stop to listen. He kept Leah close, guiding her through turns and down narrow service paths. They reached a sealed door with red lights blinking above it. Ray slammed his hand on the panel. "Access override Captain Code." The system beeped. The door hissed. Open. Inside was a small medical station. It was half-lit but calm. 3 injured soldiers were already there, one lying on a stretcher, barely conscious. A young technician sat beside him, trying to stop the bleeding. The tech looked up as they entered. "Sir, you're not supposed to be here." Ray ignored him. "The evac zone is still safe?" "For now, yes," the tech said. "But we lost half the east wing. Whoever attacked knew where to strike." Ray pointed at Leah. "She's with me. Treat her injuries if you can." The tech looked confused. "She's not human." "She's alive," Ray said flatly. "That's enough." The technician hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "Understood." Leah sat down near a broken console. Her legs ached. Her ribs burned from earlier wounds. But she stayed quiet. She watched Ray check on the other soldiers. His voice was steady. His hands never shook. He helped them drink water. He gave comfort where he could. He wasn't just a fighter. He cared for his people. She had never seen that in her commanders. Back in her unit, mercy was weakness. Emotion was failure. The injured were left behind. But here, Ray made sure no one was forgotten. One of the wounded soldiers looked at Leah with half-closed eyes. "She's not one of us," he muttered. Ray looked at him. "She saved my life. That makes her one of us today." The soldier didn't speak again. Leah lowered her gaze. "Why do you protect me?" she asked softly when they were alone. "You could leave me behind like my own people did." Ray sat next to her. "Because you're worth more than the war that made you." She turned her head slowly to him. "Even if I was ready to die for that war?" He nodded. "Sometimes people fight because they were never given another choice." She stared ahead in silence. "Do you think we're the same?" "No," he said, "but I think we can still understand each other." She let those words settle inside her. Not the same, but understood. That was new. Suddenly, the medical station. Lights blinked red again. A voice rang through the speaker. Enemy forces breaching upper platform. Evac in 10 minutes. All units retreat to Hangar Bay. Ray stood. We're moving. He helped the wounded soldier onto a makeshift stretcher, then looked at Leah. You strong enough to carry him with me? She nodded. Yes. They lifted the stretcher together. The young tech followed with a medpack. The other injured soldier walked behind them, leaning on the wall. They made their way slowly. Carefully. Ray led the way. Blaster drawn. Leah kept. Her eyes sharp. She didn't feel like a captive anymore. She felt like part of something. Each step forward wasn't just survival. It was the beginning of something new. Asterisk. Hangar of choices. Asterisk. The path to the hangar was long and broken. Smoke filled the vents, and the walls were cracked from explosions. Red lights flashed like warnings from the heart of a dying ship. Ray and Leia moved carefully, each carrying one end of the stretcher. The wounded soldier groaned quietly, pain thick in every breath. Behind them, the tech supported another man. The group moved like a slow, fragile line. Almost there, Ray whispered. The hangar doors stood tall ahead, partly open. Through the gap, Leah could see the glow of ships. Some were already leaving, engines roaring as they carried survivors away from the chaos. Ray tapped his comm. Unit 7 approaching for West Hall. 2 injured, 1 civilian asset. A voice answered quickly. Copy. Get through fast. We have hostiles approaching from below. Ray looked at Leah. We run on 3. Can you handle that? She tightened her grip. I can. 3, he said. They rushed forward, boots pounding the floor. The stretcher wobbled with the speed, but Leah didn't slow down. The blast. Door was almost shut now. A small group of Marines waved from the other side. Hurry. They reached the entrance just as the floor behind them shook with another blast. A dark shape appeared at the far end of the corridor, an armored enemy. Weapon raised, Leah didn't think. She dropped her end of the stretcher, grabbed the torch from her belt, and stepped between Ray and the enemy. She didn't flinch. The attacker fired, but Ray moved faster. His body slammed into Leah, pulling her to the ground just in time. The shot burned past her shoulder. Ray rolled and returned fire. His shot hit the enemy clean, dropping them before they could shoot again. The hangar door started to close. The Marines grabbed the stretcher and pulled the injured inside. Ray reached back and grabbed Leah's arm. Come on. They dove through. The door as it sealed shut behind them. Safe. 4. Now. The hangar was full of people. Soldiers, civilians, medics. Ships lined the floor, loading as quickly as possible. Ray helped Leah up. Are you okay? She nodded, heart pounding. I didn't. Run. He gave her a tired smile. I noticed. One of the captains approached. You brought her? He asked, glancing at Leia. She saved lives today, Ray said firmly. She deserves to leave with us. The captain didn't argue. He just nodded once. Then get her aboard. We launch. In 5, Ray turned to her. You don't have to stay with us. Once we're clear, we'll head back to Earth. From there, you can choose. Leah looked around at the hangar. People still looked at her with fear, some with confusion. But just a few looked at her like she belonged. I don't know where I'll go, she said softly. But I know I don't want to go back. Ray nodded. Then don't. A medic waved them toward a small shuttle. Ray led her inside. As the hatch closed and the engines warmed, Leah sat beside him in silence, not as a prisoner, not as an enemy, but as someone who had earned her place. The stars rose outside, the window as they lifted off Dot, and for the first time in her life, Leah looked forward. Asterisk, the shuttle passed through the blackness of space. Stars drifted by like frozen sparks. Leah sat by the window, watching them silently. Her hands rested on her lap. Her body still ached, but her mind was awake, full of thoughts she had never dared before. Across from her, Ray dozed lightly. His armor had been removed, revealing the scars on his arms. His face looked softer now, less like a soldier, more like a man who had seen too much. The hum of the ship was soft, calming. The intercom buzzed. Approaching Earth. Estimated landing in 12 minutes. Leah leaned forward, heart racing. She had never seen Earth before. Her people had spoken of it like a legend, a dangerous blue world full of violent beings who tamed fire and metal. A death world. But what she had seen in Ray was not just fire. There was light too. As the ship dropped into the planet's orbit, the curve of Earth appeared in the window. Blue oceans. White clouds. Green lands. So alive. So peaceful. Her breath caught. She had imagined fire and smoke, weapons and war. But this was beautiful. Ray opened his eyes and followed her gaze. It's something, isn't it? Leah nodded slowly. I didn't expect it to look like this. Most don't, he said. But Earth isn't just about strength. It's about survival and healing. The shuttle landed near a quiet base on the outskirts of a human city. There were no loud soldiers here, just quiet workers, engineers, and medics. The air smelled fresh. Leah stepped off the ramp and touched the ground. Earth. Warm wind brushed her face. She looked up at the sky, wide and endless. Ray walked beside her. We'll get you checked in. You don't have to stay on base, but for now, it's safe. Safe, she repeated, like it was a strange word. Asterisk. He led her through a small gate where a kind-faced woman handed her simple clothes and a datapad. You'll be staying in the guest quarters for now, the woman said. Ray spoke highly of you. Leah blinked. He spoke for me? The woman smiled. He does that, especially for people others forget. Leah held the clothes close and followed the directions to her room. It was simple. A bed, a window, a desk, but it was hers. No guards. No locks. No cuffs. She sat on the bed and stared out the window. Trees moved gently in the wind. Birds flew by. The sky was open. She closed her eyes for a moment, and she didn't feel like a prisoner. She felt free. Later that evening, someone knocked. It was Ray. He held a small tray with food, something warm and soft that smelled like spices and bread. You didn't come to dinner, he said. Figured I'd bring it to you. She took it with a small nod. Thank you. Ray sat across from her on the edge of the bed. Tomorrow, you'll meet with the council. They'll ask what you want to do next. She looked down. And if I say, I don't know, then they'll help you figure it out, he said. You're not alone. She hesitated. You said Earth is about healing. Do you really believe that? He looked her in the eyes. I have to. After what we've been through, we have to believe something better can come next. She held his gaze. For the first time in a long time, she believed him, and that was enough. No longer the enemy. The next morning, Leah stood before the Earth Council's local chamber, nervous but calm. She wore simple clothes, her alien uniform long gone. Her injuries were healing. The fear in her chest was quieter now. Ray stood beside her, silent but steady. He had already spoken to them earlier. Now it was her turn. The council members weren't. Like the human warriors she had seen before, they were older, wiser. Some looked curious, some cautious, but none looked cruel. The lead counselor leaned forward. You were captured during the border war? Leah nodded. I stayed behind when my unit retreated. My orders were to hold the post, even if it meant death. Yet you surrendered. I was left with no choice, she said softly. But later, I chose not to run. There was silence. You fought against Earth. Killed our soldiers? Her voice was quiet. Yes. But then you saved one of ours, the counselor continued. You defended him. I didn't plan to. I was confused, angry. But when the human warrior Ray freed me instead of hurting me, I saw something I never expected. She looked at Ray briefly. Mercy. The counselor tapped her fingers. And now? Leah swallowed. Now, I don't want to go back to who I was. I don't want to serve those who left me behind. Then what do you want, Leah? She took a breath. I want to learn. To grow. Maybe help others like me, who were also left in the dark. The room was still. Then another counselor asked, You believe humans and your kind can live together? I didn't, she admitted. But now, I think it's possible, if both sides are brave enough to try. After a long pause, the lead counselor looked at Ray. And you support this? I do, he said without hesitation. She's more than what her uniform once said. She made a choice, a hard one. I've seen humans do worse, and still be forgiven. The counselor nodded slowly. Very well. She'll remain here under observation, but free. We'll assign her to the Unity program. Language, history, peace studies. If she chooses to help us with outreach later, we'll talk again. Ray smiled. Leah felt something break loose in her chest, a knot of fear that had never left her. Since capture, she was no longer the enemy. She was someone again. Weeks passed. Leah studied human customs, food, music, and old stories. She practiced Earth languages, met other aliens who had joined the program, and learned how to speak without. Fear.Ray visited often. Sometimes they trained together in the open fields. Other times they just walked through the gardens, talking about stars, family, or nothing at all. One day, while sitting on a small bench by a quiet lake, Leah asked softly, Why did you really? Free me, Ray? He looked at the water. Because I saw myself in you. She turned her head. What do you mean? I've done things in war I don't like to remember, he said. I was once angry, ready to destroy anyone who stood in my way. But one day, someone gave me a second chance. A commander who saw more in me than just a weapon. Leah nodded. Slowly. And you gave that same chance to me. Ray smiled gently. You earned it. She looked back at the lake, sunlight dancing on the water's surface. I still dream about the past sometimes. The war, the cold nights, the pain. That's normal, he said. But now you get to dream about something else, too. She thought about that, dreaming not about punishment, but about purpose. Hope, peace. She turned to him. Then, maybe mercy isn't weakness. Ray chuckled. It never was. It's the hardest strength to carry. And in that quiet moment under the earth sky, beside a soldier who had once been her enemy, Leah smiled. A real, free smile. For the first time in her life, she wasn't waiting for punishment. She was walking toward a future. One step at a time. Asterisk.